Liz here. Today we are going to be talking about how to classify triangles. All right, now I know we have been talking in class about how to classify angles, and we know that there are 4 different types of angles. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 different types. There is a right angle. Let's add a title. There's a right angle, and it is an angle that measures exactly 90 degrees. It looks kind of like the letter L, exactly 90 degrees. Now it can be drawn like this. It doesn't have to be like an L every single time. It could be drawn like that, but as long as it looks like a corner and it oftentimes has that little box right there, it's a right angle. Now, there's also an acute angle. Acute angles are less than 90 degrees. So any number between 89 and 1 degree. So they're like right angles that have been squished down. So they're really tiny openings. They don't look like an L. They look like an L, but they're squished. They can be drawn anyway, as long as they can even be really, really tiny, or they can be barely shorter than a right angle. But as long as it's less than 90 degrees, it's an acute angle. Next, we have obtuse angles. Now, the way I remember this is when you go to the doctor and they ask you to, maybe you have a sore throat, they ask you to open your mouth. They tell you to open your mouth and say, ah. Well, obtuse starts with that same ah sound, and obtuse angles are greater than 90 degrees. So they are opened up wider than a right angle. So see how that is opened up really wide? They are extended way past that normal letter L shape. They are opened very wide. So it can be anywhere from 91 degrees to 179 degrees. Now, the reason it can't be 180 degrees is because 180 degree angles are called straight angles. All right, and straight angles to me are one of the easiest things to remember. They are just straight lines. Sometimes you might see them with a little arc right there. They can go any which way, but it is just a regular old straight line. Can be in any way, but it is 180 degrees. So we got right angle is 90 degrees. Acute angles, oh, a cute little tiny angle. Those are less than 90. Obtuse angles, greater than 90, really wide open. And straight angles, just a straight line. So now that we've reviewed the types of angles, we can actually go into classifying triangles, okay? And we have to know the types of angles before we can classify triangles, because a way that we can classify triangles is by telling which types of angles triangles have. So there's another way to classify triangles, and it's by their sides. But let's just focus right now on classifying triangles by their angles. So let's focus on this side over here. So there are 3 ways you can classify triangles by their angles, and it's very similar to the types of angles that they have. Acute, there can be acute triangles, there can be obtuse triangles, and there can be right triangles. Okay, so acute triangles are triangles that have 3 acute angles in them. So here's a cute little angle. It's really tiny. You can see it right there. Here's an acute angle. It's really tiny. You can see it right there. And here's an acute angle. Really tiny. You can see it right there. So acute triangles are any triangle that has all of its corners, all of its points as acute angles. That's an acute triangle. The next type of triangle is an obtuse triangle. So obtuse triangles are triangles that have one obtuse angle. All right, so if you look at this, this is definitely an acute triangle right there, an acute angle. It's so tiny and squished. And this is definitely an acute angle right there. It's tiny and squished. But look at this one right there. It is opened up very, very wide, okay? It's an obtuse. Now, it's not an acute because acute triangles, they have to have all three of their points being acute. But obtuse, it can have some acute angles in it, but if one of those points is obtuse, it's automatically an obtuse triangle, okay? And the last type of triangle when you're classifying it by the angles is a right triangle, and you can probably already figured out based on the name that a right triangle is a triangle that has one right angle. So look right here, here is that letter L shape. I could add a little box in the corner right there. Right there is my right angle. Now, it has a very tiny squished angle right there, and it's got a tiny squished angle right there, so those are acute angles. But it does have this L-shaped 90-degree right angle, so it automatically makes it a right triangle. So when you look at triangles, they can be one of three things when they are classified by their angles. It could be an acute, when they're all three acute. It could be an obtuse with two acutes and one obtuse. As long as it has one, it's automatically an obtuse triangle. Or it could be a right triangle with one right angle in it. Now, let's talk about classifying triangles by their sides now, not just their angles. Okay, so now let's look at classifying triangles by their sides. So we can determine characteristics of triangles by either looking at their angles that they have and telling what type of angles they have, or looking what kinds of side lengths that they have and determining the classification based on the way the sides are, how long the sides are made. Okay, so of course there's three ways to classify by their sides. So the first way is called, and they're really weird words, I'm just going to go ahead and tell you now. The first way to classify is called scalene. The second way to classify is called, this is a really weird word, isosceles. And the third way to classify is right here, equilateral. Okay, so if you look closely, there are these weird little dash looking things on the sides of the triangles. Okay, and they're not there for no reason. They serve a purpose. Okay, so I'm trying to trace them in purple so you see them a little bit better. Okay, those little dashes mean that the sides are equal in length. All right, the amount of dashes that they have tells which sides are the same. Okay, this side of this triangle has one dash on it. This side of this triangle has two dashes on it. This side of this triangle has three dashes on it. That means that none of the sides are equal in length because they all have different amounts of dashes on them. But look at this triangle. This side right here has two dashes on it. And this side over here also has two dashes on it. So that tells me that the sides that have the same amounts of dashes are equal in length. And this only has one dash on it down here. So that means it's different than these two because it doesn't match. This one down here, every single side has one dash on it. That tells me that all of the sides are equal because they all match in the amount of dashes that they have. Okay, so let's look back. The first kind of way to classify a triangle by its sides now is called scalene. Okay, and that is the kind of triangle, when you look at it, none of the sides are equal in length. It says no congruent sides, and congruent means equal. Okay, so it says no congruent sides. So like I said, this has one dash, that's a one random length. This has two dashes on it, that's another different length. And this has three dashes on it. So those dashes are telling me that all of the sides are different. They're not congruent, they don't match. So it's a scalene triangle, okay? Scalene. when none of the sides are equal in length. All right, but the second way to classify triangles by their sides is something called isosceles. Okay, and isosceles triangles are when triangles have at least two congruent sides. Okay, so this side right here has 2 dashes on it, and this side right here has 2 dashes on it. So that tells me, oh look, there are 2 sides that are equal in length because their dashes match. Now this dash is different because it only has 1 dash on it, so it's not the same as these two, but isosceles triangles have 2 equal sides. Okay, now finally we have an equilateral triangle, and you can probably already tell that this word kind of has the same prefix that equal, equation, equi, which means the same. Okay, equilateral triangles have 3 congruent sides. Well, this side has 1 dash on it, this side has 1 dash on it, and this side has 1 dash on it. That tells me that all 3 of the sides are equal, so it's an equilateral triangle. Okay, so let's look at some examples. Let's look at this triangle. This side has 1 dash, this side has 3 dashes on it, and this side has 2 dashes on it. That tells me that none of them match. None of them are the same length. And remember, the kind of way we classify it when all of the sides are different in length, that's that really weird word, scalene. All right, but let's draw an isosceles triangle. Remember, isosceles is when triangles have 2 equal sides. So we could draw it like this. And it's got to have 2 equal sides. So we could put these 2 sides matching. So this side has 2 dashes, and this side has 2 dashes, so that's telling me that those sides match. So this is an isosceles triangle. Isosceles has 2 equal sides. Now let's draw an equilateral triangle. An equilateral triangle, remember, has all of the sides equal. This is the triangle that most people think of when they draw just a regular old triangle. So this side can have 1, 1, and 1. That tells me that all the sides are equal in length. So that is, again, an equilateral triangle. And it has, or again, has that same prefix. Equilateral, equal, all sides are equal.